The space station called Orion floated in the darkness between stars. It was an ugly place. Pirates, smugglers, and killers came here to do business. The law did not exist in this corner of the galaxy. Only money mattered. Commander walked through the crowded corridors with his head held high. Other creatures moved out of his way. They knew who he was. Everyone knew the Syndicate. 400 of the deadliest mercenaries in 3 sectors. They had won 40 campaigns. They had never lost a contract. Was tall for his species, with dark blue scales and 4 arms that ended in razor-sharp claws. His eyes were black and cold like deep space. He had killed his first enemy at 12 years old. Now, at 60, he had stopped counting the bodies. His lieutenant, a female named walked beside him. She was younger but just as deadly. A scar ran across her face where a plasma bolt had nearly taken her head off. She had killed the shooter with her bare hands while her flesh was still burning. They entered a private room where a hologram flickered above a metal table. The image showed a blue-green planet covered in clouds and oceans. Text scrolled beside it in galactic common language. 442b read aloud. Human colony, population 8,000. Defensive forces minimal. Target, secure the settlement and hold until hegemony forces arrive. I studied the data. The pay is very high. Why would the hegemony pay so much for such a small target? Because they want it done quietly, said. Humans are new to the galaxy. The Council does not want to start a war with them. Not yet. So they hire us to do the dirty work. What do we know about humans? Pulled up another file. It showed images of the strange creatures. They had soft skin with no scales or armor, only 2 arms, 2 eyes. They walked on 2 legs and had no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons at all. They come from a planet called Earth, said. Mid-level world. They have been spacefaring for only 200 years. Their technology is basic. Their military is small. I made a sound of contempt. They look weak like prey animals. They are prey animals. This will be easy money. Pressed his claw to the contract pad. The deal was done. In 3 days, his company would drop onto 442b and take what the hegemony wanted. The colonists would surrender or die. Either way, they would be paid. That night celebrated with his officers in a cantina near the docking bays. They drank strong liquor and laughed about the easy job ahead. Some of them made bets on how quickly the humans would surrender. The most generous guess was 6 hours. Was on his 4th drink when someone touched his shoulder. He spun around, claws ready. An old creature stood behind him. It was a species known for trading across the galaxy. But this looked wrong. 3 of his limbs were mechanical replacements. His shell was covered in burned scars. One of his eyes was missing. You are commander, the old trader said. It was not a question. I am. What do you want? The looked around nervously. Then he leaned close and spoke in a low voice. You took a contract against humans, against a colony on 442b. His eyes narrowed. How do you know this? I know many things. I also know that you are making a terrible mistake. Laughed. A mistake. We are the Syndicate. We have crushed armies. We have burned worlds. A few thousand soft-skinned humans are nothing to us. The old trader did not laugh. His remaining eye was filled with something he had not seen in a long time. Fear. Real fear. I was a young trader once, they said. I had a ship and a crew of 12. We found a human vessel drifting in dead space. We thought it was abandoned. We thought we would take whatever cargo they had and sell it. He lifted one of his mechanical limbs. There was one human on that ship. One. She was injured and starving. She had been drifting for 30 days with no food and little water. Any other species would have been dead or too weak to fight. What happened? She killed 9 of my crew with a metal pipe. She broke my limbs and burned my ship. Then she took my cargo, patched my wounds so I would not die, and left me floating in an escape pod. The grab's arm with his remaining real limb. His grip was surprisingly strong. She was not a soldier, she was a cargo hauler, a civilian, and she nearly killed us all. Pulled his arm free. One human got lucky, it means nothing. It means everything. The trader's voice dropped to a whisper. You do not understand what humans are. You see soft skin and think they are weak. You see no claws and think they are harmless. You are wrong. Then what are they? They come from a commander, a planet where everything tries to kill everything else. The air is poison in some places. The water will drown you. The ground shakes and opens up to swallow cities. The weather freezes and burns and tears buildings apart. Had heard stories about. Most species avoided them. Nothing good came from such places. Earth did not create humans, the trader continued. Earth tried to kill them. For millions of years it threw everything at them. Ice ages, plagues, predators, disasters, and humans survived. They did not just survive. They conquered their world and then looked up at the stars and asked what else they could fight. The old stepped back. The colony you are attacking requested reinforcement 2 cycles ago. They asked for something called special forces. Do you know what that means? Did not answer. It means the humans are sending their best killers to that planet. Not civilians, not regular soldiers, specialists, warriors bred and trained on a world that makes our worst nightmares look like paradise. The trader turned to leave. Then he stopped and looked back one more time. You are not going to raid a colony, Commander. You are walking into a trap, and the bait is your own greed. He disappeared into the crowd, stood alone for a long moment. Then he went back to his officers and finished his drink. They laughed and joked and made more bets about the easy mission ahead. But that night, alone in his quarters, accessed the restricted hegemony files on human military history. He read for hours. He read about their wars, their weapons, their tactics. He read about soldiers who kept fighting with holes in their bodies, about warriors who ran toward danger instead of away from it, about a species that had turned violence into an art form. When the station lights brightened to signal morning, was still sitting at his terminal. He had not slept. He was beginning to think the old trader might have been right. But a contract was a contract. The syndicate had never failed a mission. They would not start now. 3 days later, 400 mercenaries boarded there and set course for 442B. None of them knew they were flying toward their doom. The broke through the clouds at dawn. 442B spread out below them like a green and blue jewel. Forests covered most of the land. Rivers cut through valleys like silver snakes. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks hidden by mist. It looked beautiful, it looked peaceful. Commander knew better than to trust appearances. They landed in a clearing 2 kilometers from the human settlement. 400 soldiers in powered armor formed up in perfect lines. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Drones lifted into the sky to provide surveillance. Everything was going according to plan. Stepped out of his command ship and immediately felt wrong. The gravity here was stronger than he expected. His legs strained under the extra weight. His armor systems worked harder to compensate. The air was thick and heavy, filled with strange smells that made his sensors spike with warnings. Atmosphere contains unknown organic compounds, a reported. She was checking her equipment with quick, efficient movements. Some of them are mildly toxic. Recommend keeping helmets sealed. Understood. All units maintain full environmental protection. The mercenaries began their advance toward the settlement. They moved in textbook formation, covering each other, watching every direction. They had done this 100 times before on 100 different worlds. The forest swallowed them within minutes. Had seen many alien environments. He had fought in deserts that could cook a soldier inside their armor. He had battled through swamps filled with creatures that dissolved flesh. But this forest was different. Everything here seemed designed to kill. Thorns the size of fingers grew from vines that grabbed at their armor. Plants released clouds of spores that clogged air filters. The ground was soft and unstable, hiding roots that tripped soldiers and holes that swallowed legs up to the knee. "How do humans live here?" one soldier asked over the radio. No one had an answer. They reached the settlement an hour later, raised his hand to halt the advance. Something was wrong. The town was empty. Buildings stood silent and dark. Doors hung open. Vehicles sat abandoned in the streets. Food rotted on tables in outdoor cafes. It looked like everyone had simply vanished. "Spread out," ordered. "Search every building, find the colonists." The mercenaries moved through the town like ghosts. They checked homes and shops and offices. They found personal belongings, family pictures, children's toys. They found half-eaten meals and clothes laid out for the next day. They did not find a single human. "Commander," said, "the colonists knew we were coming. They evacuated." "Where did they go?" "Into the forest, most likely. Should we pursue?" "Thought about it. 8,000 civilians running through hostile jungle. They would be easy prey. But something felt wrong. Why would they run into the wilderness instead of trying to escape on ships?" "Send scout teams," he ordered. 4 soldiers each. Find out where they went." Lieutenant A took the first team herself. She chose her 3 best soldiers and led them into the tree line north of the settlement. The jungle closed around them like a living thing. The first hour was difficult but uneventful. They pushed through vegetation that scratched at their armor and sucked at their boots. The air grew thicker the deeper they went. Strange animal calls echoed from the canopy above. Then Corporal found the drone. "Lieutenant, look at this." A move to his position. One of their surveillance drones hung from a tree branch, its lights dark, its rotors still. She examined it closely. "It was not destroyed," she said. "Someone disabled it. They removed the transmitter by hand." "That is impossible. This drone was 30 meters up in a tree, in this gravity, through this poison air." Apparently not impossible for everyone. They kept moving. A felt eyes watching her from the shadows. Every rustle of leaves made her spin around. Every bird call made her finger tighten on her trigger. 2 kilometers from the settlement, Corporal vanished. A heard nothing, no scream, no weapon fire, no struggle. The soldier behind simply reported that he was gone. "What do you mean gone?" "He was in front of me, Lieutenant. Then he was not. I looked away for 1 second. They found his rifle 30 meters away. The barrel had been bent into a curve by raw physical force. No tool marks. Someone had done it with their bare hands. "Fall back," I ordered, "now." They ran or tried to run. The jungle fought them every step. Vines grabbed at their legs. Roots rose up to trip them, and somewhere in the darkness something followed. Private Thresh was next. He fell behind for just a moment, struggling with a thorn bush that had wrapped around his leg. When I looked back, he was gone. His helmet lay on the ground, its straps cut clean through. "Move faster," she shouted. They ran harder. A's lungs burned, her muscles screamed. The gravity pulled at her like chains. She had never felt so slow, so heavy, so vulnerable. A voice came from the trees above her. It spoke in perfect, with barely any accent at all. "You are doing great. Only 4 more kilometers to go." I fired blindly into the canopy. She hit nothing but leaves. Private went down next. Something hit him from the side so fast A's eyes could not track it. One moment he was running beside her. The next he was on the ground, unconscious, his weapon missing. I was alone. She ran until her body would not run anymore. She staggered and crawled and dragged herself through mud and thorns. Every shadow held death. Every sound was a warning. She had been in combat for 20 years and had never known fear like this. The voice came again, closer now. She could almost feel warm breath on her neck. "Almost there, keep going, you can do it." 6 hours after entering the jungle, Lieutenant A stumbled out of the tree line and collapsed at Commander's feet. Her armor was torn. Her scales were bleeding from a dozen wounds. Her eyes were wide and empty. Reports demanded, "What happened out there?" I looked up at him. When she spoke, her voice shook. "They took my whole squad. I never saw them, not once. They were playing with us, hunting us, laughing at us." She grabbed his arm with desperate strength. "Commander, we need to leave. Right now, we need to abort this mission." Stared at her. I had faced death 1,000 times without flinching. He had seen her fight through wounds that would kill most soldiers. He had never seen her afraid. "Order all scouts to return immediately," he told his communications officer. "Now." But it was already too late. Of the 40 soldiers sent into the jungle, only 11 made it back. They all told the same story: shadows that moved too fast, enemies that appeared and vanished like ghosts, voices that spoke their language and mocked them while they ran. One scout reported that his entire team had been taken down by a single human who dropped from a tree, disabled 4 armed soldiers in close combat, and disappeared before anyone could fire a shot. The whole attack lasted less than 10 seconds. Commander looked at the jungle that surrounded them. The shadows between the trees seemed darker now, deeper, full of things that waited and watched. For the first time in his 40-year career, he ordered a retreat. His officers objected. They did not retreat. They had never retreated from anything. "We are not retreating," said. "We are consolidating our position. There is a difference." But in his heart he knew the truth. The hunters had become the hunted. And somewhere in that alien jungle, something was smiling. Commander chose his ground carefully. A hill overlooking the human settlement gave clear sight lines in every direction. His engineers worked through the night building fortifications. Automated turrets covered every approach. Motion sensors created an invisible web around the camp. Drones patrolled in constant circles. By morning, the firebase was complete. 340 mercenaries waited behind walls of reinforced metal and shields of crackling energy. Their weapons were charged and ready. Their armor was sealed tight. By every military rule in the galaxy, the position was perfect. No force could take it without massive casualties. Allowed himself to feel something like confidence. Then the sun set on the second day, and the humans came. The first warning was the drones going dark. One by one, their signals vanished from the tactical display. Not destroyed, just gone. Silent. "Perimeter alert," the sensor officer reported. "Multiple contacts approaching from the south." "How many?" 12, Commander." Felt ice form in his stomach. 12, only 12. "Confirmed. 12 life signs moving toward our position." 340 soldiers against 12. Those odds should have been a joke, but had read the files. He had heard the stories. He knew that 12 humans had once held a hill against 2,000 enemy soldiers for 3 days and walked away alive. "All units to battle stations. Weapons free. Kill anything that moves." The automated defenses opened fire first. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds tore through the darkness toward the approaching contacts. The air itself seemed to burn with deadly energy. The barrage lasted 9 minutes. When the weapons fell silent, smoke and fire filled the killing ground. "Status report," demanded. "Scanning now, Commander." The sensor officer's voice wavered. "I am reading 12 life signs, still moving, still approaching." "That is impossible. Nothing survives that kind of firepower." "They did not try to survive it, Commander. They went around it, under it, through gaps in our coverage we did not know existed." The perimeter alarm screamed. What followed was chaos. The humans hit the firebase from 4 directions at once. They moved so fast the targeting systems could not track them. One soldier reported a contact moving across open ground at speeds that should have been impossible in this gravity. Another watched a human scale the outer wall with bare hands, climbing reinforced metal like it was a ladder. Watched his tactical display fill with red warning lights. His soldiers were falling, not dying mostly. The humans seemed to be aiming for non-lethal takedowns when possible. They were not trying to kill the mercenaries. They were trying to terrify them. An explosion blew open the east gate. 3 humans came through the smoke, moving in perfect coordination. They wore black armor with no markings. Their faces were hidden behind featureless helmets. They carried weapons that looked almost primitive compared to plasma technology. Kinetic accelerators, chemical explosives, blades. Watched a squad of his best soldiers engage them. These were veterans who had killed their way across 6 systems. They outnumbered the humans 4-1. The fight lasted 11 seconds. The humans fought like nothing had ever seen. They did not seek cover. They did not maintain distance. They charged directly at the mercenaries and closed to hand-to-hand range before anyone could react. In close combat, the humans were monsters. One of them took a plasma bolt to the shoulder. The wound should have been crippling. The human soldier kept fighting. She grabbed the shooter by his weapon arm and threw him into his own squad mates. Then she drew a blade and cut through 3 more soldiers before anyone could raise a gun. Another human was shot in the leg and fell. He hit the ground, rolled, and came up shooting. His accuracy was perfect even while lying in the dirt with a hole in his body. When 2 mercenaries tried to rush him, he killed them both with a knife while still holding his rifle in his other hand. The 3rd human in the group was the most terrifying of all. He carried no ranged weapon at all, just 2 short blades and a smile that never faded. He danced through the mercenary lines like a ghost made of murder, cutting and slashing and spinning past every attack. When he was done, 12 soldiers lay bleeding on the ground, and he did not have a single scratch on his armor. Grabbed his command staff and led a counterattack toward the west wall, where another group of humans had breached the defenses. He found his soldiers already beaten. The humans stood among them, checking pulses and applying medical patches to the worst wounds. They were saving the mercenaries they had just defeated. One of the humans looked up at. Through the black helmet, he could see nothing but the reflection of fire. "Commander," the human said. The voice was calm and friendly, like someone greeting a neighbor. "Nice night, isn't it?" Raised his weapon. The human moved faster than his eyes could follow. One moment she was 5 meters away. The next she was beside him, her hand on his rifle, pushing it aside like it weighed nothing. "Don't do that," she said. "It won't end well for you." Then she was gone, vanished into the smoke and confusion. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the firebase was in ruins. Automated defenses were wrecked. Walls were breached in a dozen places. Over 200 mercenaries were down, most unconscious or wounded, a handful dead. The humans had not lost a single soldier. Gathered his surviving troops in the center of the camp. They were broken. He could see it in their eyes. These were hardened killers who had faced death without fear their entire lives. Now they flinched at every shadow. They jumped at every sound. "What are they?" Lieutenant whispered. She was clutching her weapon so tightly her claws had cut through the grip. "They are not soldiers, they are not even warriors, they are something else." Did not have an answer. Then his communication system crackled. A human voice came through on an open channel. "Hey, Commander, good fight tonight. Your boys are tougher than most. We actually broke a sweat for once." Grabbed the communicator. "Who is this?" "Just a soldier, same as you." "Well, not exactly the same. Different species, different everything. But you know what I mean." "What do you want?" "Right now, a sandwich, been running around all night and I'm starving." There was laughter in the background, multiple humans joking with each other. "But what I really want is to give you some advice, Commander, free of charge." "What advice?" "Go home." The line was silent for a moment. "You came here to take this colony. You can't. You brought 400 soldiers and we have 12. By tomorrow morning you will have less than 200. By the day after that you will have none. Not because we will kill them all, because they will surrender. They will break. They will run. They do not run. They do now. The voice was still friendly, still casual. See, the thing about your species, Commander, about most species in this galaxy, is that you evolved to avoid danger. Your ancestors ran from predators. They hid from threats. They survived by being careful and cautious and smart. And humans, our ancestors, when something tried to eat them, they got angry. They followed it home. They killed it. Then they killed all its friends and family. Then they burned down its forest just to make sure. The human laughed softly. We are not like you, Commander. We do not fight to survive. We fight because we like it. Because something deep in our blood remembers 10,000 years of being prey and wants to make sure nothing ever hunts us again. The communicator clicked off, stood in the ruins of his fire base, surrounded by his beaten soldiers, and finally understood what the old traitor had tried to tell him. He was not fighting an enemy. He was fighting a nightmare given flesh. And the nightmare was just getting started. By the third night, Commander had lost over 200 soldiers. Some were dead. Most were just broken. They sat in the corners of the ruined camp, staring at nothing, jumping at every sound. The proud warriors of the syndicate had become hollow shells. Called his remaining officers together for a final meeting. There were only 5 of them left. Was there, her scales pale and her eyes empty. She had not slept since the first night in the jungle. We are leaving, announced. Full retreat to the landing craft. We lift off within the hour. No one argued. A week ago they would have called him a coward. Now they just nodded with relief. The contract, one officer managed to say. The contract is broken. We cannot complete it. We will return the payment and hope the hegemony does not blacklist us. They gathered what soldiers could still walk. 137 mercenaries, all that remained of the most feared fighting force in 3 sectors. They formed up in a ragged column and began the march back to their ships. The humans let them get halfway there before the fun began. The first trap was not a weapon. It was a noisemaker, a simple device that screamed when someone stepped on it. The sound echoed through the jungle like the cry of a dying animal. Every mercenary froze, every weapon raised. Nothing attacked. They started moving again. More noisemakers went off. Screams and wails and electronic shrieks came from every direction. The mercenaries stumbled forward in the dark, surrounded by an orchestra of fear. Then the voices started. Wrong turn, a human called from somewhere to the left. The words were imperfect. Getting warmer, another said from the right. Almost there, keep going. The voices came from everywhere and nowhere. Sometimes they were loud, almost shouting. Sometimes they were whispers right next to a soldier's ear. The mercenaries began firing at shadows. They shot at trees and rocks and each other. Screamed for order, no one listened. Soldiers broke and ran. They scattered into the jungle looking for escape routes that did not exist. The humans picked them off one by one, not killing them, just catching them, wrapping them in restraints and leaving them for their comrades to find. Kept pushing forward. He had to reach the ships. He had to get his people off this planet. Nothing else mattered anymore. He was 200 meters from the landing zone when a shadow dropped from the trees and put him on the ground. The human was female. She was smaller than, lighter, weaker by every physical measure. But she moved like water and struck like lightning. Before he could react, she had his arms locked behind his back in a hold that threatened to snap his joints. Easy there, Commander, she said. Her voice was calm and friendly. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. Struggled, the human adjusted her grip and pain exploded through his body. He stopped struggling. Good choice. She hauled him to his feet and pushed him forward. They walked through the jungle together, the human guiding him like a parent leading a child. Other humans appeared from the shadows, escorting groups of captured mercenaries. No one fought anymore. They just walked in silence. The humans brought their prisoners to a clearing near the abandoned settlement. Makeshift shelters had been set up. Medical stations treated wounded soldiers. Food and water were being distributed. The humans were taking care of the mercenaries they had just defeated. Was brought to a tent in the center of the clearing. Inside, a human male sat behind a simple table. He was older than the others, with gray in his hair and scars on his face. His eyes were patient and calm. "Commander," the human said, "please sit down." A chair had been placed across from the table. Sat. His captor released his arms and took up position by the door. "Would you like a drink?" The human gestured to a bottle on the table. "It is not poisoned if that is what you are thinking. We do not work that way." Said nothing. The human shrugged and poured 2 glasses anyway. "My name is Colonel. I command the Special Forces unit assigned to this sector." "Why am I here?" "Because I wanted to talk to you, to explain a few things before we send you home." Pushed 1 glass toward. After a moment the mercenary took it. The liquid inside smelled strange but not unpleasant. "You are wondering what we are," said. "What makes humans different from every other species you have fought? Why your best soldiers fell like children against a force 1/30th their size?" "Yes." Smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was the smile of a teacher with a slow student. "Let me tell you about Earth." He leaned back in his chair. "Our is what the galaxy calls everything there tries to kill everything else. The animals eat each other. The plants produce poison. The insects carry diseases. The weather destroys cities. The ground itself shakes and opens up to swallow entire populations." Took a sip of his drink. "For 4 billion years, Earth threw everything it had at life, and life adapted. It became stronger, faster, meaner. By the time humans came along, we were already the survivors of survivors." "Other species come from dangerous worlds," said. "They are not like you." "No, they are not, because Earth did something different. It did not just create survivors, it created conquerors." Stood and walked to a map on the wall. It showed a blue and green planet covered in markings. "Our ancestors were small and weak. No claws, no fangs, no natural armor. Predators should have wiped them out in a generation. But they had 2 gifts that nothing else on our world could match." He tapped his head. "Brains we could think, plan, learn, remember." He tapped his legs. "And endurance. We could not run faster than the things that hunted us, but we could run longer. We could chase prey for days without stopping. We could walk across continents. We could keep going after wounds that would kill anything else." Turned back to. "When a predator attacked our ancestors, they did not run and hide. They followed it. They learned its patterns. They waited for the perfect moment. And then they came back with rocks and sticks and fire and killed it. That is survival instinct. All species have it." "No, that is vengeance. That is something only we have." Sat back down. "Your ancestors evolved to avoid threats. When something scared them, they ran until they felt safe. They developed technology to keep danger at a distance. That is logical. That is sensible. That is why your species is so good at building things." He leaned forward. "Our ancestors evolved to eliminate threats. When something scared them, they got angry. They did not run until they felt safe. They fought until nothing was left to be afraid of. We are not good at building things, Commander. We are good at destroying them." Thought about the last 3 days. The efficiency of the attacks, the precision of the violence, the way the humans seemed to enjoy every moment of the fighting. "This is your nature," he said slowly. "You cannot change it. We can control it, usually. We have built civilizations and arts and sciences. We have learned to live in peace with each other, mostly. But the instinct is always there. The hunter, The killer, the thing that looked at the galaxy and asked what else it could fight, finished his drink. You are mercenaries, Commander. You kill for money. You think that makes you dangerous, but you fight to survive. You fight because you have to. When the killing is done, you go home and try to forget. He set down his glass. We fight because we want to, because something in our blood sings when we are in combat, because the worst parts of our nature become the best parts when we have enemies to face. Gestured toward the door. Your soldiers are being treated and fed. In the morning, you will be released. You will take your ships and leave this system. You will tell no one about the colony's location or defenses. And if we come back, smiled, it was not a friendly smile, then we will stop being merciful. He stood and extended his hand, in what now recognized as a human greeting gesture. It was a good fight, Commander. Your people are tougher than most. In another life, you might have made decent humans. Did not take his hand. What happens now to the galaxy, to all of us? Lowered his hand. His eyes were old and knowing. That depends on whether the rest of you learn the lesson we are teaching. You can be our friends, our partners, our allies. We are very good at those things when we want to be. His smile faded. Or you can be our enemies, and then you will learn why nothing on Earth hunts humans anymore. He walked to the door and paused. Sleep well, Commander. You have a long flight home, and a lot of explaining to do. Sat alone in the tent for a long time, thinking about everything he had heard. For the first time in his life, he understood what fear truly meant. 3 months had passed since 442B. Commander sat alone in a dark corner of the same cantina where he had taken the contract. The station around him hummed with the usual noise of mercenaries and criminals doing business. Contract boards flickered with job offers. Soldiers laughed and drank and boasted about their kills. Did none of these things. He just sat with his drink and stared at the wall. His left arm was mechanical now. The original had been too damaged during the retreat. Human doctors had removed it and fitted the replacement themselves, working with calm efficiency to repair the body their soldiers had broken. That mercy still haunted him. The syndicate was finished, not destroyed by casualties, though they had been severe, destroyed by fear. Word had spread through the mercenary networks within days of their return. Everyone knew what had happened on 442B. Everyone knew that the most feared fighting force in 3 sectors had been broken by 12 humans. Soldiers resigned. Officers transferred to other companies. By the end of the first month was the only one left. A shadow fell across his table. He looked up. The old traitor stood there, the same one who had warned him before the mission. His mechanical limbs clicked softly as he sat down without asking permission. You survived, the traitor said. That is rare. They let us go, all of us. Every soldier they did not have to kill in combat. This remaining eye widened. They released prisoners. Why? Took a long drink before answering. He had thought about this question every day for 3 months. He finally understood. Dead mercenaries do not talk. What? They wanted us to come back. They wanted us to tell everyone what happened. Set down his glass. The humans are not trying to win wars, old one. They are trying to prevent them. The leaned back in his chair. Explain. Think about it. Every mercenary company in the galaxy will hear our story. Every species will learn what those 12 soldiers did to us. Every commander who considers taking a contract against humans will remember the syndicate and ask themselves if any amount of money is worth that risk. Laughed bitterly. We were not defeated. We were made into a message, a warning. The humans used us to tell the entire galaxy that attacking them is suicide. The traitor was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Psychological warfare on a galactic scale. Exactly. They did not need to kill all 400 of us. They just needed to send 127 broken soldiers home to spread the word. A server droid approached their table, ordered another drink. They did the same. "What will you do now?" the trader asked. Thought about the question. He had been thinking about it for months. The hegemony offered me another contract. A simple job, guard duty on a mining station in the Outer Rim. Good pay, easy work. And I turned it down. Why? Because the mining station is in a system that borders human space. And I spent 3 days on 442 learning what happens to people who get too close to humans. He finished his drink in one long swallow. I am retiring, going to find the farthest moon I can and live out my remaining years in peace. No more contracts, no more killing, no more pretending I am something I am not. You were the most feared mercenary in 3 sectors. I was a fool who did not understand what real danger looked like. Stood up from the table. The galaxy has spent 10,000 years building an economy on warfare, mercenaries, conquest, territorial disputes. It is how things have always worked. He looked at the contract boards, covered with job offers from 100 different species. The humans are going to change everything, not by conquering us, not by destroying us, by making us realize that some fights cannot be won, that some enemies are not enemies at all. What are they then? Thought about Colonel, about the calm patience in his eyes, about the terrible truth in his words. Extinction events, he said quietly, wearing friendly smiles. He walked toward the exit, the called after him. Wait, those 12 soldiers, the ones who destroyed your company, what were they like? Stopped, he turned back. They were professional, efficient, deadly beyond anything I have ever seen. He paused, and they were laughing. Laughing. The entire time. They treated the whole thing like a game, like exercise. One of them complained about missing a sports match back home. Another made fun of his squad mate for poor shooting. His voice dropped to a whisper. They were not afraid of us. They were not even stressed. We were 400 of the deadliest soldiers in the galaxy, and to them, we were entertainment. He turned and walked away. Commander, the called one last time. Those 12 soldiers, were they the best humans have? They're elite. They're champions. Laughed, it was not a happy sound. I asked Colonel the same question before they released us. Do you know what he said? What? He said they were considered average, standard deployment, nothing special, shook his head. Their best soldiers were busy with actual threats somewhere else. We got the B team. He walked out of the cantina and into the crowded corridors of Iran Station. Around him, life continued as normal. Deals were made. Contracts were signed. The business of violence went on. But as passed a human merchant selling goods from Earth, he flinched. The human smiled and wished him a good day, nodded and kept walking. He would always flinch now. For the rest of his life, every time he saw a human, he would remember the jungle, the shadows, the voices in the darkness, the 12 soldiers who had broken his entire world without even trying hard. On the other side of the galaxy, on a planet called Earth, those same 12 soldiers gathered in a small military facility for a brief award ceremony. They received commendations for excellence in psychological deterrence operations. The paperwork was boring. The speeches were short. Sergeant wanted to finish quickly. There was a basketball game in an hour, and he had money riding on it. After the ceremony, a young officer approached Staff Sergeant. The officer was fresh from training, eager and curious about real combat operations. Staff Sergeant, the officer said, what was the mission like, the one on 442B? Shrugged, she was already thinking about dinner plans. Honestly, kind of boring. They gave up way faster than the last group we dealt with. Started running after the second night. Total disappointment. The young officer looked shocked, but the reports said they were the most feared mercenary company in 3 sectors. Yeah, I heard that too, grinned. Maybe next time someone will send us a real challenge. She walked away whistling a tune, leaving the young officer standing alone with a new understanding of what it meant to be human. In the depths of space, word continued to spread. Mercenary companies quietly removed human contracts from their boards. Pirate fleets plotted courses that avoided human shipping lanes. Colonial powers revised their expansion plans to stay far from human territory. No one announced these changes. No treaties were signed. No declarations were made. They just started being more careful. Because somewhere out there, 12 average human soldiers were waiting for the next fool who thought humanity was weak. And the next batch of survivors would go home with stories even worse than the ones they told. The galaxy was finally learning what Earth had always known. Humans were not prey. Humans were not predators. Humans were something far worse. They were the thing that predators had nightmares about. And they were just getting started.